Welcome back, everybody. So I'm really excited to have Emily as my guest today, and I'm going to let her tell that quick kind of overview of her story and her rising from the ashes journey that we're going to dive into today. It's a lot of different elements about relationships that are really in alignment that she's going to be talking about her near-death experience. But Emily, I'm going to hand it over to you and just have you give that brief tour of some of the places that your story has taken you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ashley, for having me today. It's such an honor and privilege to be on your podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, my brief tour. I was married to a gentleman. Well, first of all, I'm an empath, and an empath is somebody who is highly sensitive and highly intuitive. We can absorb other people's emotions very easily. We're like sponges. I did not know what an empath was growing up. I was just knew that I was constantly feeling an overwhelming amount of emotions that would bring me to tears like instantly, and I didn't know why. So I had this complete imbalance within me. And so empaths tend to, who are not healed, not all, tend to attract narcissists. So I, of course, was married to a narcissist. And I was in that relationship for 12 years. From that relationship, I completely lost who I was, and then ended up going to having an NDE that I have woken up to what an empath is, how to step into my power, and was able to completely transform my life over the last, I would say, it's been almost 10 years, about 9 years now.
Wow. What I love about your story as well is that you mentioned how you really had the life that, like, on paper, everyone had, like, society would really deem as successful, but that you were, like, spiritually bankrupt, essentially, just totally
Yeah.
not feeling like that internally. Is that right?
It's so true. So while I was married and I was living up to everyone else's expectations, as an empath, we tend to live up to everyone else's expectations because when we disappoint somebody, we feel their feelings and we don't want to feel their feelings. So we will often go with the flow of what everybody else wants. So I was living up to my ex-husband's expectations of me. I was living up to my family's expectations of me. And I had 2 7-figure businesses. Had this amazing life. We traveled the world. We just had some great times. When he was healthy, of course. He was sick, but we had some amazing times, and it looked like on the outside, everything was perfect in my life. But on the inside, as you said, I was spiritually bankrupt. The inside of me was completely dead. There was no color, there was no life inside of me. It's because I didn't know who I was. I had no clue. I just knew how to be a people pleaser.
This is, I feel like, the interesting thing about social media is that people probably were seeing your posts or your life and making assumptions about what that must feel like, or kind of
Yeah.
feeling like, oh, I just wish I could have but how, like, when you were waking up in the morning, like, what was the experience to be in your shoes at that point?
I'm so glad you asked that because at that time I hired a mentor to work with me. And I'll never forget the question he asked me. He said, "What gets you out of bed in the morning?" And I
Hmm.
looked at him and I said, "What are you talking about? Work. I have to get up and work." And he pretty much responded the way you did. He goes, "You don't get it." And then I don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, "It's your passion. Where's your passion?" I didn't have a passion. And I go, "What's yours?" "I don't even know what you're talking about." And he said, "My wife and my kids." I
Hmm.
didn't know. My husband was not my passion, and I didn't have kids. He was too ill for me to have kids.
I want to rewind it back to, like, the kind of relationships that you saw growing up, because I do feel like oftentimes most of the people that I know, we didn't necessarily have these great examples of super healed relationships, but they also didn't have TikTok and, like, all of the access to what we have now. So
Yeah,
I get that. Like, I understand that we have a lot of benefit, right,
we do.
in the world. But, like, what did you grow up sort of in? Give me, like, a little bit of, like, your younger years that set you
Yeah,
up for this life.
yeah, exactly. So I'm from a very highly educated family. I had an NDE as a baby where,
Really?
yes, I've had 3 in my life, but this one
Oh
is
my gosh.
I had an ear infection that caused a really high fever where I stopped breathing and went blue.
Oh my gosh.
Grew up in a very small town. My parents had to drive me to the local doctor, which was, 10 minutes away, a blue baby. And so
Wow.
my soul has not wanted to be in this lifetime at all, but
Wow.
that caused some brain damage. So I had a learning disability growing up. And so
Wow.
I was always trying to exceed everyone else's expectations of me because their expectations were low. And I just wanted to fit in. My family was educated, my friends at school were calling me stupid. And so I became this overachiever to learn and to be equal to everyone else. So
Hmm.
I was always very hard on myself. My parents, they are beautiful people. They're still married.
I'm feeling
They
what you're saying so much. Like, so keep talking because I feel like your story is so relatable. So yes, keep going. But if you see me
related.
like tearing a little bit,
Oh,
it's like
you connect.
yeah,
Oh,
I really connect with your experience here. And so I feel
yeah.
like thank you for sharing this. So you just felt like you were trying to like be
Fit in.
enough for everybody
Yeah.
to be the best at things and that was like your main
I
focus.
lost, yeah, I had no clue who I was from a very, very early age. No clue at all. I just knew how to live up to everybody else's expectations. So I
Yeah.
lost sight of who I am. And I didn't know.
And you built a life from that place. You married from that place, of
Yes.
course, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's important because I think that oftentimes there are always going to be people in life that are giving us like advice from a place of what they think our life should be. And so we might have family members or friends that it's like if we're not sort of being physically abused or there's not some kind of problem like that, they're like, well, maybe you just need to adjust or maybe you just need to be, and we think that, right? Like, oh, maybe I just need to do better or be different in order to make this life work. But like for you, like it's interesting. Like, do you feel like your near death experience, like that, like, let's maybe start to go there of like what started to happen, if it happened at a time where it was like maybe an all time low? How did that weave into all
So
this?
the most recent one I had.
Yes.
Okay, yes, 100%. It was an all-time low. So this is 2015.
Okay.
I'm married to a man that I'm not in love with. I wanted to get out of that relationship for 7 years. He was very ill. He had an autoimmune disease, so we lived at the 12 years we were married, 10 of them we lived in a hospital. Or
Wow.
he was bedridden and I was taking care of him. When he was healthy, he went back to his old ways of drinking and eating junk food. And that was destroying me because I was his caretaker and I had to support the family. I had to run the businesses. I had to do all of this. On top of it, I was a stepmom. I don't know if any of your listeners are a step parent. Step parenting is the hardest thing to do. The
Hmm.
hardest thing to do because you are that child's impacts your life, whatever decision they make, good or bad. And you're not invested in that child like a parent would be.
Yeah.
And you have to take this back seat and let the parents do their parenting, whether you agree or not. You just have to take a back seat and roll with it. And being a step parent in my situation, this is all my experience. So this is not for
Yeah. No,
everybody,
keep
but
sharing this. Yeah. This
it
is great.
it's very I was the third wheel. My husband made sure his ex-wife was priority because her health if that her mental health was off, that meant their son's was off. So I understood. For the kid,
Hmm.
I understood, but I was never a priority. So here I'm supporting this family and I'm not getting the reward. Plus, we couldn't have kids because he was so ill. So it was just like I sacrificed everything
Wow.
for this man. But if you look back at my childhood, I sacrificed everything for everyone else. That
Hmm.
was just the
So
pattern I
it was
learned.
that was what you were comfortable with. So
Yeah, that's what I
yeah,
learned.
I do find that, like, especially after my divorce and, like, going through, like, therapy and things like that, like, to see how much my early childhood played on how I chose that marriage and how it's, like, how so often we're wanting to almost get love in these dynamics or kind of have another chance at making it work and how common that is, that, um, when things are unfulfilling, that like if we actually look internal and be like, okay, it's not maybe just about this person.
Right.
How do I actually like find that this dynamic and that I was at the center of this? I think that's like a real challenging thing, but I think you did that work as well. It sounds like, to recognize that.
It wasn't an overnight thing, but yes, it's a humbling realization and going, okay, I am the common denominator and I'm seeing this pattern and I'm not liking it.
Yeah.
It has to change.
Yeah. And so I know that when you left, it happened after the near death experience. Would you be willing to share some of kind of what led up, like the day before that near death experience, and some of what happened immediately after?
Yeah, so prior to the near death experience, again, I was just depleted. I was running two businesses that I was not aligned with at all. Even though they were successful, I
What
was
did
not
you do
aligned
at
with.
that time?
I'm an Amazon seller, so I private labeled products, imported them, and sold them. And I mean, I
Wow.
would have containers of products that would cost $100,000 and be shipping them
I
across.
didn't realize you did that. Like, 'cause
Mhm.
I used to work for this woman for like 2 years that was like teaching private label stuff, and I was like her mindset coach in that program. So even though I did not do any of that stuff, I was like watching it happen. I had no idea. Like, I love that I'm getting to know all these different facets about you. Okay, wow. So, and to build that up, like that's amazing. And
From scratch, from literal scratch, I built it up. So when
wow.
I will never forget the day I started that business, I was like, I had every business I had done prior, because I've always been an entrepreneur, but
Yeah.
every day it was my husband and I. But the day I started my Amazon business, I was like, this is mine. This is not his. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm not including him on this. I always included him on everything. And this time I was like, no, I'm going to do the heavy lifting. He's not going to help me. This is my baby.
Mm.
So I had made that decision, and within 18 months, they were seven figure. But actually, the first one was 18 months. It was a 7 figure business, and then I had another a company approach me to run their Amazon business,
Wow.
and I was a partner in that. That's how I
I know
got
you
started.
had to you must have had to work really hard though, because I know that it's possible, but I imagine you probably really learned a lot, put in the work, right? Because I think sometimes people might hear this and be like, "Oh wow, that's just an easy thing
No,
to do."
no,
It's
this
not
is
a get rich quick
years.
scheme at
No,
all, to be clear.
no, especially
You put in
today,
that
it's
work. Yeah.
really hard, but back then it was a lot easier. But my husband and I were already importing products from China early in like 2008. We started importing, so I had
Wow.
a foundation, and so I started this
Yes.
business in 2012, and the Amazon, and so I had a piece of the puzzle already figured out, and then I
Yes.
just had to figure out Amazon.
Right.
Um, so it is not no. I spent probably $100,000 just to learn the business.
I know that there's so much behind the scenes stuff and work, and the reason I actually left that working for that woman is I felt like they were very much trying to sell it as a get rich quick scheme on the
Yeah,
calls,
they
and
are a lot of
I
mhm.
felt very misaligned with that, and I would see the people that were not getting that were following their steps because they were really sold this dream, and that's like I feel like a big thing that it's like there's not going to really be like just one magical thing that you do that like there's going to be steps, right? There's going
Yeah,
to be time investment. Yeah.
right. Yeah, there are definitely again, like I spent years learning it and about $100,000 in educating myself. So
Thank
it
you for
was not.
taking that detour with me for a moment.
Mhm.
Like, so
Yeah.
you said that this near death experience happened at a doctor's office?
Yeah, so I had a minor procedure. I was going to the doctors. Now, this is a weird thing, and this is a little note, but it's interesting to me. Is when I was going to the doctors. Now, I've always had like anxiety going to any doctor appointment. I don't care what it is. I just don't want to go.
Yeah.
But this appointment, for some reason, I was like driving there. I'm like, I remember thinking, as if it was yesterday, this is all good. There's nothing to stress about. I'm good. Like everything's gonna be fine. However it ends up, I'm fine. There's just like this peace just came over me. So I drive up
Wow.
to the office and I had to have a shot of lidocaine. Well, my body had this adverse reaction to lidocaine. I went, it felt like the moment she gave me the shot, all of a sudden I started getting woozy and uncomfortable and disoriented. And I remember trying to tell her, hey, I need some help, but nothing would come out of my mouth. And then I remember thinking, okay, it feels like I'm going to faint. I'm going to put my legs or my head between my legs to just get the blood to my head. I couldn't move. The next thing I knew, I transitioned. I went from like complete like discomfort and just this awful, awful feeling to euphoric. I was in euphoria. It was just heaven. I was just so happy to be out of my body. Um, so I'm floating up in this dark space. And as I'm in this dark space, I'm expansive. There's no limitation, there's no physical body. It's just energy. And yeah, it's just the most incredible feeling I've ever had in my entire life. And I'm floating up, and I don't even know I'm transitioning at this point. I just see this, like, the typical what you hear in NDEs, the dark tunnel with the white light, and there's a silhouette standing in front of it. I see that, and I'm
Wow.
floating towards it, and it feels like a feminine energy. I don't know who it is, but I'm just drawn to this. It just felt like love,
Hmm.
like that nurturing love that I have always wanted in my life that I never really got because I was
Yeah.
so hard on myself. That's what it was. And I was just like felt at home.
Wow.
And I think it's fascinating because if you think about here in this earthly realm, if you're in a dark alley with a white light and a silhouette standing in front of it, you're not going to go down that alley.
Yeah, you're
You're
gonna be
going to
like,
run.
"Whoa, what
I'm
is this?"
out. I'm out.
But you had this it was just a feeling, like, you knew that you were
I was
safe.
home. Mhm.
Yes.
You don't
Mm.
have fear. You don't have emotion up there. It's different. It's very different. So I'm floating towards it. Then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm transitioning. And I'm excited. I'm like, yes, I am transitioning.
Wow.
But then I realized, wait, my mom, my dad, and my beloved dog Buster are going to be heartbroken when they find out that I passed away. And so I think of them, but being an empath, I would always feel their feelings. But this time I realized I didn't feel their feelings.
Wow.
But I knew they were going to be in pain, but there was this disconnect, this emotional disconnect that felt so empowering to me. Because I was like, okay, they're going to have to go through it, and that's their journey. It's
Wow.
not mine anymore to carry for them. And I realized for the first time I've been carrying everybody's journey for them, which is disempowering, not only for myself, but for them.
So you're having all these realizations, like, in this experience.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then
Wow.
I was shown 3 timelines, and they each represented my mom, my dad, and my dog. And it showed the amount of time that each of them would have their crippling grief. And I knew it wasn't for the balance of their life. I knew it was for a small, small portion of their life. And because I knew it was such a small portion, I was like, okay, I can go. I can leave. They're going to be okay. They will be able to smile again. And so I started to float up towards the silhouette. And as I'm floating, and it's effortless, it's just easy. I'm floating. All of a sudden, I saw this. So a mirage, like a spirit. When you see like a spirit, it's like a mirage, right? Come at me, and it pushed me back. So I was falling backwards at a force, and this spirit like came and pushed me back and threw me back into my physical body.
Wow.
So
How many minutes were you out? Like, did they tell you afterwards?
she said it was a few minutes. I don't have a specific.
Yeah, and you said
She
they
had
were,
to
like, trying to
resuscitate me.
they had to resuscitate
Yeah,
you,
she had to.
and
So
you had stopped breathing, like, all of
I
that.
I had a full-on grand mal seizure. I stopped breathing. They had to perform CPR to bring me back.
Wow.
Um,
And you were just to walk in to do this minor, like,
yeah.
routine thing. Oh my god. They must have been freaking out as
Oh yeah,
well.
well, I was immediately sent over to the hospital, the emergency room, and had to be under surveillance for 24 hours. It's awful. If you have a seizure, you can't drive for 6 months. They revoke everything from you. It was a lot. But
Oh,
what
wow.
happened was I get pushed back into my body, and then Ashley, it hurts getting back into your body. In the spiritual realm, you're expansive. There's no limitations, and it's filled with like unconditional love. And then you're this earthly realm, this 3D realm, we are confined, we are limited. And so now I'm in this limiting body, and I just feel awful. It doesn't feel comfortable at all.
Right.
I did not understand like this stark white like exam room, the walls. I didn't understand that. I was like, what is this? Like this confining space. I didn't know who I was. I had amnesia. I didn't know who I
I
was.
I recently just watched, like, an NDE movie with people's stories, and they were saying that they felt so separate and
Oh,
that
yeah.
they kept trying to ask them questions, and they're like, "Oh, well, she," and they were referring to themselves almost as
Yes.
this, "Well, I know that she feels this," and that, like, they
Yes.
she's
That's
like, "I realized."
100%.
Really? Okay, she's like, "I had to just kinda say, like, I knew what they needed from me, but, like, that it was basically it sounds like it was
Yeah.
really hard to relate because
You
you were so pulled to
yeah.
all that is," right?
Yeah, I didn't know who I was. Nothing made sense. And my doctor's yelling. I didn't know who my doctor was, and she's yelling, "Emily, Emily." And I'm like, "Who's Emily?" I didn't know who Emily was. I'm like, "Is she gonna help me or harm me or what is going on here?" I had
Oh.
no clue.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
very disorienting to come back into your body. It's awful.
Do you have a perspective on, like, now looking back at that, like, of that how this was working for you or how your spirit might have sort of created this? Because it seems like sometimes if things will happen for us if we can't do them for ourselves, and, like, this moment to just, like, pause and be and, like, stop, like, do you view it like that now?
Mhm. 100%. It's exactly that. So what I have done, it took me years to understand this. That happened because my so I'm a walk-in. A walk-in being a more aspect or more mastered aspect of myself came in and took over my body. Whereas my old soul, my original occupant,
Yes. Was
couldn't do it
ready to
anymore.
go.
She was done.
She was done. And I listen and have, like, gone down Dolores Cannon pathways and, like, a lot of things, like, where people are kind of realizing this aspect. I also know, Byron Katie has a
Yeah.
story like this. Do you know Byron
Mhm.
Katie's work? Yeah. And so it kind of reminds me of that story. And so I'd love for you to, like, maybe share how did you realize it right away?
I
Like, how
didn't
did you
know.
put these details together to, like,
Yeah,
understand that?
I didn't know. But what I knew was after I had my NDE within 6 months, I left my husband. And there's no emotion. Within a year and a half, I closed my businesses. I knew that I wasn't supposed to be doing that. But
Wow.
as a more, evolved part of my soul coming in, that gave me the strength to get out of the mess that I had created. I
Mm.
didn't know how to get out of that mess. I created such a mess being an empath, living up to everybody else's expectations. And so that experience was I still have a purpose here and it wasn't my time to go, but that original occupant couldn't do it. She was done and she was ready. Like I never like you hear of NDEs where people can look back and they have the out of body experience where they can see what's going on. No, I was gone. I did not want to see my body. I didn't care. I was like, see ya.
So this is a kind of random question, but, like, the movie Soul, like, I'm curious if you've watched
I have I'm
the
not
I'd be curious, like, at some point, I feel like you need to watch this, and then I wanna hear your thoughts on, like,
I'll
what
check
felt.
it out. Where
Yeah.
is it on like Netflix or
It's
something?
like it's a Pixar movie, and
Okay.
so essentially, like, this guy has a near-death experience, and that's why I feel like I liked it because it kinda had this spiritual theme to it, and then is trying to get back to his body, but then it's kind of funny in that it's like the cat ends up in his body and he ends up in the cat's
Uh,
body, and so
oh,
it's
that's
kind
so
of like
cool.
this fun thing of then them trying to switch, but I think that you might, I'd be curious if, like, how they show the spirit world and things like
Yeah,
that,
I would love to
if
see
it
it.
would be
Definitely will
resonant.
watch it. So
So, tell me about then, like, you're making these choices now, leaving your husband, like, basically these things that was very
I'm a
hard for
different
you to
person.
do,
Yeah. Now it's
just
like
like that.
easy. Yeah,
It's
easy.
easy.
I'm a
Yeah.
different person. I don't connect the same way that I did. Like walk-ins do not when they come in, and it's essentially a spiritual awakening, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so a walk-in, it's very disorienting. You still have your ego. Your ego doesn't
Mm.
go away. Like
Mm.
a full spiritual awakening for some people that have that full kundalini awakening, I think their ego is gone. I think they are able to lose it, you know?
Wow.
Um, mine, I still had my ego. So my ego was trying to stay in the driver's seat and navigate everything, but my walk-in was like, No.
Well, I feel like the subconscious is essentially our body, and so it's kind of like the spirit merging with the body, and so I feel like the subconscious and the experience of the body, you're still like in that, but then you had a whole different perspective and maybe different power choices. Like, does that feel like what you experienced?
I think if I'm understanding you correctly, so to me, the ego is our brain that is like trying to maintain a friendship with old friends that you don't even connect with.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm. It has its narrative, its
yes,
identities, it's like
it's
how it wants to be seen.
yeah, and so that's what it knows. So the brain is still like, this is how we do it, and this soul comes in as like doesn't connect. So it's very disorienting. You don't connect with people. You don't connect with the same food or the same music. Things shift
Wow.
inside of you, and it's very isolating for people who have I work with a few different walk-ins. When they experience it and they don't know, they think they're going crazy.
Yeah, and I think the people around them probably
They
do as
do.
well,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
would you usually say that there's usually a near death experience that happens that would precede the walk-in, and that would be how the exchange would take place?
It could be an NDE, it could be a moment of trauma where you don't have an NDE, but just something that's
Mm,
super traumatic that jars you.
mhm.
The veil is thin. The veil is really thin. It could be during surgery,
Wow.
and you're under general anesthesia and you come in. My
Wow.
second NDE was under surgery.
Really?
Sure, I probably had to walk in at that time too. I'm a hot mess as a spirit or soul down here. I'm like, no, I don't want to be here.
Ah, well, I've always heard that, and it makes sense to me that like they don't want to waste like this vessel and this body. So sometimes that if a soul is just done, or maybe it was even planned that way, right? Like if there was a certain mission or thing that was intended that it, I mean, do you believe that as well? That sometimes they are prearranged and that they're trying to make best use of the body?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was so far off course, and they're like, we need you. We need you to continue for moving in the right direction. So we got to like jar this situation and move it to get you back to where you're supposed to be
Wow.
going.
Wow.
So
So that really set so many things in motion. What was the reaction of like close family members? Like what were what were people what kind of advice were you getting at the time?
they didn't understand. I'm like, and I was processing it. It took me years to really understand. And it took me working with honestly three different spiritual mentors that had told me all three of them do not know each other. And they all said, you're a walk in.
Wow.
And so then that took me down like the Dolores Cannon road,
Okay, so you went
understanding
down
like,
that road too.
yes, understanding what is a walk-in. Are you crazy?
Mm.
But going back and looking back at my life and how I shifted and changed so dramatically and how I'm not the same person that I was, it made absolute sense to me. So I'm so sorry. What was your question?
I think I was just curious about if you felt like it was pre-planned like by
Oh,
your soul
yeah,
or
prior to coming in. It may have been, or it may have been a mid-life, like, okay, we
a choice
gotta
point.
intervene here
Yeah.
because this one is way off course.
I do think we have some choice points like
Mhm, I
that
do too. Yeah, absolutely.
where they're like, "Do you wanna keep going or are you gonna tap out?" But that I think it would be a deeper journey because, like, on the surface level, it's not like you're gonna know, like, or other people are gonna know that something changed, so it would just be an inner experience, which makes you feel like you're going crazy,
It
right?
does, yeah, because your family doesn't understand it, and I kept saying, "I had a near-death experience," and I told them about it, and my mom would always go, "That gives me goosebumps," but everybody else would just be quiet, and I'm like, "You guys, you don't get it. There's something happened here, something changed here," and I would be trying to
Wow.
articulate what was going on with me, but they couldn't connect.
I think it makes other people uncomfortable when we change really drastically as well, because we're essentially they're like, I just want you to kind of play this role in life that I gave you. And if you're starting to change, like I mean, we there's so much codependency, I think, as well, that has been kind of just normalized in a lot of family dynamics that I do think it can make a lot of our relatives and people that feel like they just know us and it's like this fixed persona that is in their life that can
Right.
make a lot of people uncomfortable.
I agree 100%, and the thing too, I always like to say, um, my life has never followed that little brochure of like the white picket fence, the marriage, the 2.5 kids. It never has. And it is really hard for families to understand, like, she's not traditional. She's, she doesn't follow the recipe of what success is.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
and I want to talk a little bit about the dark night of the soul before we shift more into like the rise and all of the things that you've created after that moment. But I can't imagine that it was easy, like those initial months, maybe even years
It was
after
yours.
that. What was life like right after that? Really kind of in the depths of like your darkness in this.
Yeah. So I didn't know who I was anymore. And I seriously went into Great Depression. I was at times borderline suicidal, like considering it, but not really. I guess I lost my will to
You
live.
just didn't really wanna be here and that you kind of just
Yeah.
yeah. It's not
No
like you were
desire.
planning it, but it was almost kind of like, "Man, I just don't think I can go on anymore," kind of feelings.
Right. So this is my ego. This
Mm,
is my ego going, why am I here? This is not worth it. I'm alone. I don't connect to anyone. No
yeah.
one. My family thinks I'm this black sheep. I don't
Mm,
want to connect with any friends. I'm trying to figure out who I am. So it took some time to really figure out who I was. Years, like I said, it's not an overnight thing of
yes.
acclimating this, more evolved soul and allowing that soul to become the driver of me.
Yes. Yes.
And learning how to reprogram my brain to align with that soul and allowing my brain to take the back seat.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's what I had to do. But I do remember this one night I was in, I had moved from San Clemente. I had this cute little home where I could walk to the beach, my dog and I go into town, and I was like loving it. And then I moved to Irvine and I was like, I hated Irvine.
That's mostly where I grew up as well. I mean, I live like across the street from Irvine now, but I went to high school there and it was like such a little like Pleasantville kind of vibe.
Yes,
People that don't know
yes.
Irvine, it's like
No,
very planned, like not like what were you feeling about it?
It's the Stefford wives. There's no like character. So I'm in San Clemente, this little cute
Like little beach
beach
town.
town.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could walk to the beach every day. I could go down to Del Mar, and my dog and I would go to a cafe, and I'd work from the cafe, and he would just hang with me.
Oh my
To
gosh.
moving to an apartment in Irvine, and
And it's a lot too, because I feel like you do not get a lot for your money in this area.
no, it's
I,
very expensive,
yes,
very expensive,
yes.
and
And
at
so what brought you there? Like, why did you need to go to that area? Why did you choose that area?
a relationship. And he's worth
Really?
it. I'm still with him.
You're with him.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's 100% worth it. But that transition was really rough on me. But he's somebody that really has helped me acclimate to my new soul and help me reprogram my brain. He was the support that I needed. Um,
Wow.
but being in Irvine, I remember there was one night at that point we were like, I was just like, your dad's gun is right around the corner. He wasn't
Got
home, but I was
so
thinking
it
that
got to that
low.
low of a point
I
where
was
you
like,
were like, I
I'm
could make
I,
a choice here. What was like so how were you feeling waking up in the morning at that point then?
so at that point was really hard. I mean, it was new. It was a new relationship. It was just like probably a few months in, or yeah, I was probably maybe 6 months in. I was now living with him and living with. I grew up in the mountains up in Northern California in the Sierra Nevadas, so I'm used to
Wow.
having vast like land,
Nature and
nature, and
space.
now I'm in an apartment looking at a mirroring apartment in the family all the time. And it's just asphalt and what is it, cement, and I'm like, I can't do this. I need nature. I need something. I need space. So I'm still acclimating to this new part of me, and I'm here in this awful situation, this housing situation, and I also now know that where I was living at in that apartment, there was a really awful dark energy in that area.
Oh, so it was kind of like that area and then something
And
else
so
kind
I'm,
of
yes, and
top
so
of it.
I'm a sponge taking it in, not realizing it.
I
So,
do feel like you do become kind of more susceptible at those point when your life force is lower, that, like, you
oh, yeah,
really like, it doesn't take a lot in the world. Because
no,
like, did you feel like you kind of were almost having to protect and shelter yourself at that point? Because
yes,
I feel like it's common to need to kind of pull back and kinda
right,
keep people at arm's length because it's
yes.
just too much. You were
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, my vibration was not high, and so I was absorbing all the other, so there was some weird stuff that went on in that corner of that complex I lived in, and I was
Wow.
taking it on. There were suicides, there was domestic violence, there was
Oh my
all this,
god.
yeah. So I was picking up on that, and unfortunately, that was starting to take over me. So
What
that
year was
was
this?
this was, oh gosh, 2018, I think.
Okay, 2018. Wow. Like, so you're going through, would you say that this is, like, kind of the height of your dark night of the
Yes,
soul?
yeah.
Okay. And it sounds like for you, it wasn't necessarily about what was going on the outside, because there was still a lot of good things that were happening, but for you, it was just
Me
what
trying
did
to, understand my own energy
Hmm.
and how to protect it. I didn't fully know how to do it.
What did you start to learn? Like, when did you start to kind of, like, make shifts and changes, like, after you had that realization?
Um, so I reflected back into my 20s when I was also very spiritual. I lived in Santa Cruz at the time, and I was always like, I was taking massage classes and aromatherapy. I was totally certified in
Oh,
everything.
wow. So you were,
But
like, totally on the healer path
I
before you even
was,
realized it.
yeah, but my vibration was low back then. So I was connecting to lower vibration spirits, and I had really awful interactions with them at that time. So the same thing was, I realized, was happening to me again. Fast forward to 2018, I'm having these lower vibration spirits coming in, and like they're pranking me. And
Hmm.
so at that point I said, you know what, I need to hire a spiritual mentor to help me, because I don't know how to protect myself here. So then I went out and I hired one of our mutual friends,
Yes.
Krista.
Yes. What did Krista help you to learn? What was, like, the most important thing that you gained from
So
that?
I told her, start from ground zero, because she was always like, you're very spiritual, you're very intuitive. And I'm like, I don't care. Take me to ground zero. I know nothing. I want to know how to protect myself. And so she really helped me. We spent a year and a half, 2 years working together. And it was really about, spiritual hygiene, protecting myself, cleansing my chakras, understanding it. And I'll never forget this one reading. She said, well, Emily, yeah, we need to increase your vibration so that these other spirits can't even access you. And that was the key.
Yeah. So I worked with Krista and I had like a one-on-one mentorship with her as well. And like with what you're talking about, I think it was similar of like what I felt like I really needed, and things that I felt like were maybe not as maybe I didn't the spiritual protection stuff wasn't just like an intuitive thing for me. I feel like sometimes you have to have someone else help you. I feel like also
A
when
hundred
people are
percent.
reading your energy, I feel like they're able to put things to words that you maybe don't understand, and then all of a sudden your body's like, "Oh my god, yes. Like thank you for helping me find the words." And it sounds like for you a lot of things kind of clicked into place.
It did. It really did. She was exactly who I needed in that moment. And everything shifted. Like there was never a dark night of the soul that deep and that heavy again from that point on.
Mhm.
It was like I was freed of that oppression.
So I know that you've learned so many tools, that you have a business that's really like focused on empaths. It sounds like this really kind of set you up for your path, for like really knowing like where your magic is, right? Like, and tell us
100.
about that too.
About the business or where?
Yeah, like how this kind of like got you there, because I feel
Yeah.
like it seems like something that on one hand we might be like, that's so horrible, that's so terrible, but it feels like
Oh, yeah. No, it's
it
good.
really, like it created, like, what you have now, so I'm so curious how it got
Absolutely.
there.
I understanding that I was an empath. And Krista was probably the first one to really break it down to me. She was one that also told me I was an empath, and I'm like, great, what does that mean? um, and when I understood what that meant, and understanding how to work and within my own power, like being an empath is a very powerful gift if you know how to work with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took time to understand where are my weaknesses, where are my strengths as an empath, and really start to get comfortable with it. Where are my boundaries? Understanding, is this my energy? Like that night, I was so suicidal. I wish I had been working with Krista prior, because at that moment I would have gone, oh, is this my energy? Is this mine? Because it wasn't. I probably wasn't, since I was in such a dark area of that.
I do feel like, I think I want to point this out just for other people that might be going through their dark night of the soul, is that when you're in that frequency, you're sort of like you're going to receive radio signals or messages that are susceptible, like, or at that similar frequency. So I do feel like sometimes when thoughts or ideas are coming in seemingly out of nowhere, like asking, how you said, does this belong to me?
Yeah,
Is this mine? Like that, we kind of have to ask ourselves those
we do.
questions and check in, and not just think that it's all us and that it all belongs to us.
Yeah, because it's not. Whether you're an empath or not, all of us has to check in. And that's a really empowering thing to do. To know, okay, wait, this isn't mine, and I can get rid of it. So I started to empower myself. And again, I've worked with probably actually four mentors one-on-one over the years, but Krista was my first one.
Yeah.
And by doing it, I have learned so much about myself, about empaths. And so now I really love to work with empaths that are just, their whole nervous system's out of whack. They're just, everything is so in overdrive for them that they don't even know how to function or take care of themselves. They can't even find 5 minutes a day to go outside and just be.
Yeah.
And my thing is, from what I've experienced and learned, share it with them so that they can streamline their learning, not have to go through the same trials and errors that I've gone through, or stop the same patterns that they've been living and start to live in their power. Being an empath, I did not know what living in my power meant for years. And I remember asking a friend, an old coworker, I'm like, what does that mean? Because she would always be like, just stand in your power. And I'm like, can I cuss?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Stand in your power? Like, I don't know what you mean. And I'm thinking like toxic masculine.
Mm.
And she's not. She's very like divine feminine. And so it took me a while to understand that, like, oh, standing in your power is speaking your truth. It's, not allowing people to just bulldoze you, or, it's just being you and being unapologetically you, and not being ashamed of any quirks or, things that have happened, just being proud of who you are. And to help women who have been just stepped on by the toxic masculinity that we live in this world, to show them that they are really valuable. And they have this gift to actually alchemize that energy that is somebody else's. So we can alchemize the energy of our own, as well as our loved ones, as well as our collectives, to turn that darkness into love and light, and radiate it out to help people, not only
It's
ourselves.
so important right now in the world.
It is so important.
So important. Very needed right now. And I want you to actually pretend in this next moment that you're speaking to someone directly, as if they're on FaceTime with you and they're kind of in the depths of it. And I just want you to say to her whatever you feel like you needed to hear at that time in your life.
That is such a fun question, Ashley. I love that. Okay, let me see. Just give me a moment to center myself. I feel spirit here right now. But what I would say to you is, you're not alone in this. And there is a map in front of you, a roadmap to take you one step at a time. You don't need to see the end result. You just need to see this next step. And whatever insight or wisdom you need in this moment is divine for you to keep moving forward. So let me ask what that next step is for you. Hang on, I'm going to ask the divine because I can feel him here. Oh, okay. Thank you. The next step is okay. I just want to cry. It's just so much love coming through. I'm so sorry. The next step for you right now is to get into your root chakra. You're not in your body. And we need you to get into your body so that you can learn how to enjoy life. If you're only in your upper chakras and your lower chakras are all out of balance, you'll never find joy in this life. It's like having a tree without a root system. It's going to fall over. So what they are saying for you is to, they want you to hold your hands like this, right over your root chakra, and practice Om, just chanting Om for 3 minutes a day. That's it. And as you're doing that, envision a beautiful, vibrant red just in your root chakra area. And it can go down your legs, starting at your tailbone, going all the way down your legs. And just that's going to really help you get back into your body. It's going to help you develop the root system that you so desperately need in this moment. That root system is going to give you the security and the strength that you need to take that next step that you need to take.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for taking that question and running with it. And I am excited to put those clips out because I've just done that in the last, I think you're only the second person I've asked that to, but I'm like, ooh, it's going to be such a good, juicy
Such a good question.
thing to share with people.
So many people are in so much pain.
What I notice as well is that I'm interviewing so many people that we have very similar missions, but that we're putting it out in the world in different ways. And so my dark night of the soul really led me to basically merging what I call like the human and the holy, like that we really needed, I needed to be in my body and like my process of dance and this like as a performative play, like to be something that involves the body instead of just sort of spirituality that's out here.
That's exactly the message that came through.
And so it's interesting because that's like the core message that I like bring through the body. And like you have like, right, there's so many ways to do this. There's not like one thing. And that it's beautiful because all of these different people out here that are doing work like we do, like everyone has like a different thing that they need. And the magic of sort of synchronicity and the intelligence of the universe that we find just the ones that have it or that utilize it or get us into our body in the way that's just right for us.
Right.
And so I it's beautiful. So thank you for bringing that message in. And I want to just talk more about your rise. Like I want you to really get like people feel like, oh, I'm going to be brag, but talk about the things about how beautiful like your life is today. That you walk through that. You had a lot of darkness that you walked through in order to find your light and your magic, and like what is here now in your life?
Peace. I got peace. I can't tell you how incredible it feels to wake up every morning excited to do what I do. And I work hard, but I love it. I'm helping people, seeing people's lives completely transform within, a few months of working with them, and me living a peaceful life. Nothing is perfect. I don't live a perfect life by any means. I'm a real human going through this experience. But prior to this, I would have been beating myself up like, why don't I live in Northern California yet? Why don't I have a nicer home or own a home? I'm renting a home. Why am I still doing X, Y, and Z? And now I'm like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I am totally grateful for it. And I'm loving watching the journey unfold. There's no stress. The moment you can let your ego go and allow your soul to just guide you, so many beautiful synchronicities come your way.
Mm,
And there's still some deep healing I'm going through.
of
And
course. Yeah.
I'm like, I have a foster dog right now. And
Oh,
I'm like, when I got her, I'm like, I just want her for a week. Well, she came into my life to show me more layers of healing that I need to have. So I'm like writing a book right now about her. And
wow.
I'm like, oh my gosh, the universe serves us and meets us where we're at.
Yeah.
My ego is like, oh, I only want her for a week. But here she's been with me for 4 months.
Wow.
And she's such a beautiful soul. And she has so much trauma. Well, her trauma is mirroring mine. And so it's like, okay,
We
girl,
totally have soul
let's.
pets.
Oh my gosh, animals are amazing. I do actually want to adopt her out when the time is right.
Yeah.
So I want to help her heal her trauma because she's helping me heal mine. But
Oh,
I'm not like, oh God, there's more trauma. No, I'm joyful about, all right, let's take this on. Let's go. Let's find the right healer to help us. Because I can't do it by myself. I know that. I have to find the right person that's going to take me this next layer.
yeah. Yeah.
But I'm just at peace with life, Ashley. I don't know if you experience it. It feels so amazing.
I feel you. Like I think for me, when things were at their darkest, like after my divorce, like having small kids, like money was like challenging. It's like all of a sudden it's like I have this business, I have these children, I have this $3,400 rent. I felt so I had to get to the point of being like, "Oh my gosh, I'm wasting so much of my life worrying about it," and basically realizing how much we give to our worries or our fears and like how much those moments like at some point it's not easy, but it's really I feel like one of the hardest but most worthwhile things to basically just love where you're at and see all that's like working out for you and how everything does like come together even if it's like you don't know
It
how
doesn't
it's
make
going to come
sense.
together. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
It
why I shared the story of my dog because I'm like, that was not part of my plan. But the
yeah.
universe had a different plan and you have to go with the flow sometimes.
That sense of like surrendering to trust to God source universe. I feel like that's what I'm hearing in your words. And there is
Yeah.
such a freedom and a power. And I think that we always think that we have to get this other thing, the house, the car, the partner, and then we'll feel that way.
Yeah,
But
the
I feel
brochure
like
doesn't work. Throw the
it's
brochure out.
yes, so but it's just really prioritizing, right? Like
Yeah.
feeling that and doing what you need to be able to access that within yourself. And then as you're saying, like life responds to you. Your 3D world change and responds differently to you as a result.
Right.
100%. What about relationship wise? Because I know that it sounds like you're still with this person that
Hmm.
came after your marriage, and it sounds very different, I'd imagine, than
Oh,
the
night and
first
day.
marriage,
Night and
right?
day. Yeah. So when I met him, I had not been with anybody for a while because I was just not in the place to be with anyone. And I remember going home, visiting my family, and I was with my sister, and we were driving back on the 99 in California. It's just driving through the valley, and it's just ugly and boring. And I'm just thinking in the car ride, I'm like, my visit to my parents was beautiful. We live in this charming little town. It's wine country, and we came across one of my old schoolmates and her husband, and they were one night when we were in visiting town, and we stopped to say hi to them, and they were walking into town to go to one of the wineries and just buy a bottle of wine and share it together. And I'm like, I'm driving home on the 99 just fantasizing. I'm like, I want that. I'm ready. I'm so ready. So literally within I said I want a man that I named exactly what I wanted. My age, likes my music, doesn't have kids, wants to travel, has a successful business, everything I wanted. Empathic person. I want all of this. I want somebody that loves dogs. I want and the next day I found him. He came into my life and I was just like, and I won't go into the details, but we have been together. We have so much fun together. We laugh every day. Now, I don't want to get married. He doesn't want to get married. We have this agreement. It's like the Esther Hicks. Have
Ah,
you heard? We agree to be together every day. Like I wake up wanting to be with him.
choosing each other
Yeah,
every day. Mhm.
exactly. And it's not like, oh, I'm going to leave, when things get tough. That's not it. We've been through some, I mean, he's been through some dark night of the soul with me, helping me out a
Yeah.
lot. But we don't need to have the traditional life. And so we've been together on close to, I think, what, 6 years, 6.5 years. And we're
Wow.
just enjoying life together. Life is fun. And yeah, I'm grateful for him.
I think it's a very special thing to have a partner that you both are doing like the healing work of experiencing life together and like taking whatever happens in like the relationship or in life. And that like when you have somebody that you can like really be that vulnerable and intimate with, it's a really special thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it
Yeah,
sounds like you have that.
I do. I feel very blessed that I have that. The only thing that I kind of wish is that he could move to Northern California. Because I really want to get back into those redwood trees. There's something so magical for me in those trees. But he owns a very successful business here, and I wanted a man that had a successful business. So,
You never know exactly how
right.
things might turn and change,
Yes,
which is great,
exactly. You
right?
never know. And he is open to moving. So, and when the time is right for him, So,
I love it. How can people like stay connected with you? Where are the places that if they want to like learn more about like being an empath and see what you put in the world, where should we go to find this?
So my website is emilykady.com. And my YouTube is where I'm most active. I do post a little on Instagram and Facebook, but it's Emily Kady, was it Spiritual Medium on YouTube. You can find me there. I think
Ooh.
if you just search Emily Kady on YouTube, I come up. So.
And what are ways that like if people wanted to work with you, if they want to like learn more, like find out more, like what would you say to them?
So I would recommend that they book a free 20-minute consult on my website, emilykady.com. Under the services, they can book a free 20-minute consult and see if I'm a good fit for them or vice versa. So
What
they can find
happens
out.
on those calls?
On those calls, I tend to connect with spirit. I do because I want to find out like
Oh,
if
wow. So
there's,
that's going to be valuable then if they're investing that 20 minutes and it's free. I
yeah.
imagine like there's going to be a lot, there's going to be something that comes through
Yeah,
whether they work
spirit
with
will
you or
come
not.
through. Yes.
Mm.
So they will get some insight, and then I share a little bit about my program and see again if they're a good fit or not. And not everybody's a good fit. I'm looking for people that are serious about wanting to work through a dark night of the soul. They're done with this deep depression or whatever, and they're willing to do the work, as well as people that are recognizing they're spiritually awakening. They're starting to go into the fourth dimension, and they're starting to see these programs and patterns that they've been doing over and over and over in their life, and they're ready to break them. Those are the people that I want to work with, people that are serious, and we'll go into the quantum. I do a lot of quantum work that to help change timelines and help also clear energy blocks and ancestral wounds.
Ooh, I love this. And I'm so excited that I have had the opportunity to get to know you. I think that's been my favorite part of these interviews because both of us live in Orange County and we've sort of like known of each other or sort of like, I think maybe have attended online things at the same time. But
Mhm.
this is the first time that I've really had this in-depth
Right.
connection, this call with you. And I'm just like, I'm really in awe of you and your magic, and I feel very lucky to be able to like have you be one of the people that I get
Thank
to
you.
help put your story out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I've really enjoyed our time together. It's been fun.
I really look forward to maybe having future conversations about like different topics or stuff, and I hope that
Yes.
we might who knows where things might
Yes.
take us. But
I
thank
would love
thank
that.
you very much. And also I know I need to book on your podcast as
Yes.
well,
I
which I
would
also have to
love
do.
to have you.
I will. I really will do
Please.
that. Okay.
Yes. Please, please.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you will follow Emily if you feel like a resonance. If there's something that sparked it, just at least go like look at her channel. Take a look at that 20-minute conversation. I love that most people in our field are not like the pushy people that are trying to get like we just sort of want that person to make the best choice for them. So I just really want to encourage people to like if they feel that curiosity to at least just kind of take that first step and
Yeah.
explore what you're doing. You never know what that's going to lead to. So thanks everybody.
Thank you.